Right. We're here with Bill Laurie, whose official title is a manager, but he's also an agency owner, agency principal, an all around good guy. He's one of our clients. So, Bill, I appreciate you coming on the show with me.
Absolutely appreciate the invite. Look
Yeah.
forward to it.
So, you're one of those guys that as soon as we met you and we started talking to other people about you, everyone had great things to say. Everyone tends to know you, and you have a pretty good reputation in the space. And I think that reputation has allowed you to grow your agency and then acquire other agencies in that growth process. What put you on that path to start acquiring agencies? And when did you figure out that that was the way you wanted to trend?
Actually did my first acquisition, I think it was in 1998 or 99. And that was when I was an exclusive agent with Nationwide. So it was kind of more of really a merger. So it was an agent aging out, and I was in the territory and was able to buy the book from Nationwide and move it into ours. So that's kind of process started about 5 years into my career with Nationwide of buying agencies, or again mergers. And then when I saw the growth potential, obviously, you started talking to agents when they were getting near retirement to try to, get in to where they'd want to recommend you to take over their agency. And then eventually it opened up where Nationwide allowed us to, become independent. And then the acquisitions are easier now because it doesn't have to be a Nationwide book. My last one was NatGen, Progressive, Travelers. One I'm currently working on is Progressive and Travelers and stuff, and auto owners. So it's also another good way to, in today's situation with carriers being very slow to appoint people, acquisitions is a way basically through the back door. If it's a good book of business, obviously you got to do your homework that they're going to let you keep the appointment. But if you can, it's a great way right now to actually get a hold of especially a standard carrier that is tough to get appointed with right now.
Nice. And so I'm sure that first acquisition looks a lot different than the acquisition you're working on today, mostly because of how successful your agency is and who's willing to capitalize you or the capital you have to capitalize yourself. For someone who hasn't acquired an agency before and is more like you back in the 90s, how would you approach that today? Like what method would you use? Would it be outside funding? Would you try to, take
So, I
that?
mean, and for most, especially the smaller agencies, out almost always outside, unless you got a rich family or something. But it seems that outside funding obviously is the way to go. So, I mean, the biggest thing is with acquisitions when you're first getting started is just again doing your homework. Due diligence is key, and in today's environment, I think it's even more important than it was back when I first started doing them. Learned a lot of valuable lessons and lost my rear end on one that made me do a lot better job on my own on myself doing a better job with the due diligence. So and I think the other thing is go to these, first choice AC, whoever you belong to, and if you don't belong to, find a local agent that's done them and kind of check out their contracts and what are the pitfalls, what are the pluses and minuses. I always, and this, I'm not as simple as I don't get to have a surfboard in my backyard, but I'm old school Ben Franklin. I literally can take that agency and do here's the pluses, here's the minuses. And if this category over here on the pluses is much better than the minus, that's where I start. And you also have to have the kahunas to walk away from stuff,
Right.
because I think there's people that get into something and they think they're too far down that path to walk. And I think more than ever now, you got to be able to walk, because not every deal is a good deal.
Right. So what makes when you're looking at a book of business, what are the traits that you look for in that book?
Well, I mean, we start pretty much with some basic stuff. So you get a tax return, you get their carrier reports. I thought that was
Sorry.
going to be me that did that. So,
No, go ahead.
and then a detailed P&L is kind of where I start. And the carrier loss reports for someone, with our agency, we have a lot of decent profit share plans that are set up, and obviously profitability from the carrier standpoint is huge. So we've always run a very profitable book. And so one of the things I'll definitely look at is actual carrier reports. And, if it's a decent amount of premium and they're running, 70, 80, 90% loss ratio, obviously that's not near as attractive as someone that's got one that's running a 40 or, low 50s that help me maintain my, my profitability on the overall book, which is where obviously I make my money. So
Right.
that part's key.
So as you acquire these agents, inevitably there's churn, right, between the brand and someone else taking over. How do you minimize that?
I mean, we kind of on the last one, I actually did a DBA and kept their name,
Nice.
and I think you know that because we even created a separate web page. So again, and that's doing your homework on the acquisition, because almost every other acquisition, as soon as I sign the dotted line, I usually don't change the name. We kind of just slowly wean. I always call it, we wean them out. So the first 3 months, we really technically almost do nothing. We put it in our name, obviously, but other than that, even the stuff we send out will have the other person's name on it. We take over, obviously, the name, the phone number, the website, which is a lot more important these days than it was when I first started. Um, but so we just do a wean out process. We kind of go 3 to 6 months, and then we'll maybe send something that'll co-brand, or we'll change the colors on there. We have a pretty, I always say our colors are pretty noticeable. So that's kind of where we start, is like we did with the last one. We had you guys change from black and orange to our two colors, and just again kind of creep in the back door, slowly merge our name with theirs, and then eventually hopefully wean their name out completely, or just do it as a DBA. With the last one, we went with a DBA just because their Google and website had such powerful rankings that we didn't want to lose. Again,
Right.
it's still generated 107 sales opportunities last month alone. So it's know what to mess with. I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not a person that has to have my name on stuff. If I could, you know, go back 30 years, it probably would not be called Laurie Insurance. It wouldn't be Laurie Insurance Group. It would be, whatever, Dunkin' Donuts Insurance. Anything but my last name on it. So, because that's who people tend to ask for. They
Right.
hear the name. The nice part is now I've got enough kids in the business that I can give it to my kids to handle.
Yeah, they didn't ask for a specific Lori at that point.
Exactly, at that point. That's right. And a good gatekeeper never hurts.
Right. So that's a good transition. You say that you don't want your name involved with this type of stuff and you're not someone who needs to put your name on things, but somehow everybody knows your name. Everyone I talk to that I mention your name, they're like, "Oh yeah, Bill's awesome," or "Bill's crushing it," or this or that. How does that happen? Is it your networking? Is it the fact that people like a chill guy like yourself? Where do you
I mean,
gravitate?
I've always, even from the get go with Nationwide, I used to spend 3, 4 weeks a year up at their training center teaching new agents, sharing. I'm a firm believer that you could open up an agency in the office next to me, and I honestly don't think you're going to hurt me. competitively. And I think if you have that mindset, you don't mind sharing. And I think if you share, like I told you before we got on this call, is you could be in the business 3 months or you could be in the business 30 years, and everyone brings something to the table that can make you better. And I've taken a million ideas. Hopefully I've given out some ideas, but I'm never afraid to share those. And I think, and I always believe this one more than anything is don't burn bridges, because in this industry, I mean, even more so now, you could have a manager that you hated and whatever, and I watch on social media people tear people apart, and I'm just sitting there going, and 3 weeks later you get an email that,
Maybe you shouldn't
so
have said those couple things.
yeah, exactly. I said be careful what you, yeah. So you know, again, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say it. I don't throw out political views. I don't do, again, 50-50. Do you want to piss off half your client base? Or do you just want to be, like we live by the 2% rule. Be 2% better than anyone else, and you'll stand out. And it's kind of sad that it only takes 2%.
Yeah.
But really, it's really that, just we do the same thing we did 25, 30 years ago. We still call on the renewal and say thanks for your business.
Hmm.
We have to be that 2% better than an 800 number, a direct. So again, that's kind of how we are where we're at.
Yeah, I think people appreciate. I think the old school thing is the handwritten letter, but if you can kind of translate what a handwritten letter means into your business now, whether it's helping other people out, calling your clients on renewal, it does go a long way, and people don't forget it when push
Yeah.
comes to shove.
And I think, even myself, I try to remember who I was on. Actually, you'll love this. A credit card company called me, the anti-fraud department called me saying they were worried my card was being used. If this is you, press one. I press one. I was on hold for 18 minutes on an inbound call
Right.
from a credit card company. I'm sitting here going, and then I think a few days earlier I was on with Spectrum, and the God statement I hate more than anything. We are experiencing unusual call volume.
Right.
Your wait time. Every single service company that we do business with on a personal basis, and it's frustrating as hell. And that's why, again, with the CEO group, I always try to tell people you have to be overstaffed in this business. I mean, there's a lot of dead times, but I do not want my phone going into voicemail, and I don't want us to have to call somebody back.
Right.
And again, that relates back to being, 2% better than what the guy down the street's doing. Because most of them they're going to call you back. If someone calls in for a quote, we better not say we're calling you back. I mean, once
Yeah.
you let them off the hook, they're calling someone else. Or again, go direct. And if you can't be better than direct, then you're going to get what you deserve.
So let's talk about the CEO groups a little bit. You're in a few of those, no?
Yes, sir.
And you've started one. You probably have joined another one or two.
Yeah. So, the original one I started is kind of disbanded, and I've joined two. So I'm currently in two. And the nice part is, again, it's agents all over the country. From, I think, in the one that I have the meeting on tomorrow. So we do a monthly virtual meeting, and then we do on site twice a year, which I think you guys, I think maybe, I'm trying to remember who came from your group.
Scotty came down for that
Yeah,
one. Yeah.
and I don't think he had a problem coming to Florida down at Boca in January, so he seemed
No.
to
No
seemed
shot.
to enjoy it. Yeah, so. But I mean, the nice part is, example, we're going to Dominican Republic in January, so it's off-site, but we have a full-time coach. So everyone has to kick in and pay this coach a salary. So I think that's a little different than my other groups. We've got a little more social edge to it, but it's always the nice part is it's you have a question, you have a concern. You've used, I've recommend how many times I've recommended you guys, but I was the guinea pig, and again, share it because it's something that works, and I can be a testament to say, look, I invested a lot of money to do this, but I did the home. But there's also a lot of other vendors I can say, my God, I signed up for that, and I won't use any names, but
Right.
I tell people just be careful, and this was our experience, so kind of sharing both ends of it. But the CEO group is again, especially the main one that's I would say a lot more serious is we basically have homework. We share our financials, we share a lot of stuff. Again, vendors, a lot of things like that. So 2 offsite and then that hourly, but I think one of them's like 600,000 in revenue and all the way up to 5 million in revenue. So it's that kind of, I'd say young, energetic, more of a startup versus someone like myself or Bobby Thomas, another agent in Tennessee and stuff that are a lot further down the path, but have done acquisitions and done stuff that we can share with the group. So I think they're
It's probably obvious that the young guys get wisdom and advice and whatnot from you, but do you pick up things from the young guys, like their hustle and what they're trying to hack and figure out?
absolutely, especially in today's world when it comes to technology.
Yeah.
I started using this thing called Sly Broadcast.
Yeah. Super
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. But if it weren't for the younger people, I would have looked at that and said, whatever, this is the dumbest. Then once I started using it, I'm like, oh my God, this is
Right.
unbelievable. I mean, again, we don't want to give up the things that make us different. But where I feel my value for the agency for technology is how do I free up staff to do a better job with the actual client versus them, sending emails and leaving voicemails. If I can take all that time away and say, okay, now I need you to focus 110% on every call, every live call, and treat them that much better, I think it's just been huge for retention. So I look at technology as a time saver.
For sure. No, I totally agree. If you can fit almost like your principles and underlying values into a technology, then that's the best case because now you're just making what you have worked in the past at scale, right? Work at scale, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
So
The Go
and it's
ahead.
kind of even like the AI receptionist.
Yeah,
I don't want to use that during normal business hours because I think it takes away again from that live person. But if you offer that after hours and weekends and you have the technology like that available, it's not quite a live person, but
right.
they almost
Close.
feel like they're talking to a live person. Better than a voice. Again, it's a step better than a voicemail.
Yeah. And it also shows that you're with the times in a lot of ways where if you have this advanced tech, people feel like your business is probably a little bit more successful in some ways, like having good content that goes out, having AI tools built in, whether or not it's as good as a human or not. I think it puts the perception of that on their plate, especially now with how big of a buzzword AI is. So the way that you've transitioned and grown throughout the years with your agency, I assume in the beginning you were doing everything. You were selling, you were managing customers and whatnot. And then today, I'm not sure exactly what you do, but it probably has a lot to do with your company's culture and making sure things work the right way. were you naturally a salesman? Were you naturally just a networker? What was your, we call it a hammer. Like every entrepreneur has a hammer that they continually use.
Yeah.
What did you gravitate towards?
So when I first started, I was definitely sales. Very, very sales oriented. And even if you take my total CSR assessment, services not sales numbers really high, service numbers not so high. So again, do what you're good at
Yep.
and find someone that's good at what you're not good at. And I think that's the key. So yeah, I was heavily towards sales, and I think in our first 3 years, I came on with another agent, Mike Bear. We came on together, and most people know Mike as well because he grew a huge agency as well. But we were both pretty sales oriented. When we came into Nationwide, we were both with Prudential. We came to Nationwide as agents back in '94. They were primarily what I call, in today's business, I call order takers. There's order takers that can be good salespeople, but it has to come to them. And then there's outside people, which is one of our main focuses. We actually have 14 outside sales reps, which is a little different than especially most agencies, unless you get into the huge corporate agencies. So we have a pretty large sales force. And again, we try to have people focus on what they're good at and take away what they're not. And most really good salespeople are not good at service. They're not good at follow up. They hit the ground running and sell and create a mess and let people clean up behind them.
Right.
So you have to set some guidelines on that. But yeah, so I probably have not worked on an auto, a home, or commercial policy in plus years.
Wow.
Yeah, I got out of that part quick. Once I found a couple of associates that were outside selling, and I hired customer service reps. The first thing I learned, again, real early, due to being in a really successful CEO group, I was kind of one of the younger ones at the time, but I was with the Jim Lloyds and Warren Barhorse and Ray Celadine. I mean, all the, insurance icons when we were starting out. And they taught you right off the bat, if you're doing this stuff day to day, you're an agent, and hence the name CEO Group. If you want to be a CEO, you got to build it underneath. So that group was amazing. Probably obviously changed the outlook of how I was able to grow an agency the size that we've grown ours to.
For sure. So as a CEO now, what does your day-to-day look like? And I'm sure it varies depending on what's happening in the market.
It really does. A lot of it, unfortunately, since COVID, is around staffing. A lot of it's, again, technology, implementing new technology. We just did, like I said, slide broadcast. Last year we did Levitate, all, maximizing our QQ, Verta4 with Zoom and things like that. So staffing, believe it or not, I actually got back into the hiring process the last
Nice.
6 months. I'm using Total CSR, which I highly recommend to everybody. They're pre-hire assessments like gold. So I do that. Obviously, a lot of banking, payroll type stuff. I usually get in about 6:15 in the morning. So I'm usually here a couple hours before most of the rest of the group get in here. So I'm able to do a lot of things. And then acquisitions,
Right.
like I showed you earlier, I've got all this paperwork that I've got to the end of the month to get into the banks and and to the carriers, and then getting the information from that person. So, an average acquisition might be 3 to 6 months worth of,
Jeez.
paperwork trying to knock out, getting appointments and getting permission from new carriers that they'll keep you and things, getting all that type of stuff in writings. But if it comes to an auto policy, I literally have to buzz my kids in the other office, ask them to make a change to my own policies.
Good.
I stay away from that stuff as much as I can.
No, that's good. I mean, the acquisition stuff is interesting. I actually went to, I don't think it was the First Choice conference I went to Agents Alliance out in California. I went to one of their seminars on acquisitions and all of that because I was very curious. It's one of those things that obviously in the insurance industry, acquisitions are such a hot topic, but I love the idea of roll-ups outside of insurance where you take, restaurants or, landscaping companies and roll them up. And maybe at some point in my life, that's something I want to try. But insurance agents, it's like kind of a natural thing because of the recurrent books of business and the safety of the industry. So I wanted to hear what these guys had to say, and the timelines and the questions that were being asked, because I've never really dipped my toes in that world, and it's fascinating.
And it's interesting, and it, I guess it's kind of like the debt service. You always hear in all these, big wig stuff is, some debt is good debt. And that's why I said, so you can do the Ben Franklin and say, okay, this agency is going to generate $100,000 a month, and here's the debt service, $20,000 a month or $30,000 a month, and here's the staff, and here's the office. And if all of a sudden there's $15,000 a month left,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you get a smile on your face, like, all right, this is good. Or it can be the exact opposite. Is you can do all that, and maybe the carriers are only paying 10 or 12%, and you're getting 15, and that number may work out and say, there's just no skin left when and that's why I said sometimes you just got to walk away and say it's not worth it. The nice part, if you can find one locally, is the days of the walk-in and all that. So being able to use economies of scale with staffing, technology, location. We just moved into this, I've got room, plus I've got first rights on the next unit over.
Nice.
But we went from a little over 2,000 square feet to almost 6,000. And with these two acquisitions, we might be having to move, get additional space next door. So
Awesome.
But the economies of scale, I think, are what really make acquisitions attractive. And that's why the PE groups and all these have driven, the prices. And there's the negative in all this is they're attractive businesses, they're residual income, they're fair. I wouldn't say easy to run besides staffing, but once they're up and running, obviously, besides the staffing part, the rest is fairly easy to do. Almost anyone can walk in and do it. And again, why PE groups and stuff are bidding up are willing to pay what they're paying. I mean, the multiples. I remember back right when Nationwide, so it had been 4 years ago in July, where it let us all go independent. So we all bought our books out and went independent. And I remember we were offering people one time, so technically 2 times, because Nationwide was giving one. We were giving them a one-time kicker.
Really?
And if I could have known now,
jeez,
what happened then,
you bought them all.
A few guys that I'm good friends with did just that, and were able to acquire a bunch of deals, and everyone's like, well, it's never going to get better than this. And that's one comment that I let in one ear and right out the other, because I've heard that so many times where it's never going to get better, but yet every year it seems to get better. Everyone's going, well, you're never going to get this multiple again. And that was at 3. And then, oh, you're never going to get this. It was at 5. Now all of a sudden, well, if you get above 5 million, now well, maybe we'll give you a 6.5 times. So again, you run a good business, a profitable business. It's an attractive business for PE groups and other agencies like, again, myself. I'm out trying to buy agencies all the time because it's a combination of organic and inorganic. And that's how I think to try to do it organically, policy by policy, as a you might be going uphill, but you're gonna walk a long way.
Right.
Versus if I can do it organically and then inorganically and do that and keep doing that, and I think that's the difference to where you can become, what we call mega agency. You're going to get 5 million, 10 million of revenue, 20 million. I don't think organically it's near as easy to do as it would have been 20 years ago whenever, all you had to have is the biggest yellow page ad at that point.
Right.
That's no longer there's just too much competition.
So are you always looking for deals, or do you, when you acquire something, let it ride out and then assess? Or if, back to back to back months, a new deal came across, would you be interested in getting all of them under your management?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that's for sure. And I think, again, that's part of being in all these groups, part of going to First Choice, part of going to AOA, is people like to talk and people like to talk about their business. And the one beauty of doing close to 10 acquisitions is now I have my own referral source. So I kind of almost have my own Google reviews from acquisitions that I've bought. So you come to me and you're like, especially the smaller agencies, because the larger ones, they're getting a lump sum enough that, obviously every dollar matters, but to a smaller agent, it might mean the different, a couple $100,000 difference may be huge in how it affects their retirement for the rest of their life. And I saw on Facebook the other day where a guy's like, when I bought this agency and now he's doing something else and he's taking this, and my only post was, that you got to do your homework on the buyer. You're the seller, but again, a PE group comes in and sure, you obviously don't have to do much homework. They're going to stroke you a check. But
Yep.
for someone like me talking to you and you've got a 1,000 revenue agency, you need to find out about me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, check your references. Hey, I've done these and here's guys I've paid, and then owner finances involved where people are willing to pay more. So it becomes more attractive as you're smaller, but even more important to do your homework on the buyer. That, what's their financial situation? Have they done it before? Is there promissory notes? Is there all sorts of stuff? So but yeah, I'm willing to look at a lot of deals. I do think it's a great opportunity. That thing about, there's good debt and bad debt. I think most acquisitions, if the industry keeps doing what it's doing, is good debt. As
Nice.
long as, again, the numbers match up.
Right. I feel like that's where a little bit of experience comes in.
Absolutely. Like I said, I've lost. I mean, I did one. I actually, moving into this new office, I actually found the folder and almost made me sick. But I mean, I lost a couple $100,000 on one.
Damn.
This was in 2001.
Still the early days.
Yeah, still early days, and at that time it was a lot.
Right.
$200,000 is a lot of. I mean, it's still a lot of money.
Right.
To me, in 2001, it was life. I mean, it was literally could have been career ending. And bought one and didn't realize the situation. Again, not enough due diligence, and lost my rear end.
Are you able to talk about what that was? Do you mind getting
It
into?
was a carrier non-renewing.
Yep.
the book of business that I bought. And I've always tried to tell people being a nationwide agent for so many years brought a lot of good things to the table. It brought, again, service. Nationwide was big on people like Nationwide branding, but their claim service was always phenomenal. So they were a great company to build your book of business with. And I don't know. I kind of lost. I've lost where I was at.
Talking about the non-renews with the carriers.
So yeah. So about a month after purchasing this, all of a sudden I got a letter. I went to the mailbox, and no lie, there was this much mail, and it was every policyholder a cancellation notice from the carrier. And so a call, and they're like, well, we thought we'd let you keep the appointment. And again, I had nothing in writing, but a couple of our other local agents are really upset. And, at the time I was Nationwide, and they're like, we're not going to allow you to, an exclusive agent to be appointed with us, even though Nationwide let you do it. As long as you didn't write new business, you could just keep the book. So they had some really neat programs. I mean, they were way ahead of the game when it came to acquisitions back in the early 2000s. But yeah, and within 30 days, and the company was so competitive, I couldn't frickin' move them.
Right.
So they just walked out the freaking door.
Oh man.
So
that's awful. It never happened again, though, I bet.
No, it has not. And that's why I try to tell people, learn, speak to someone that's done it, good and bad. Find out the good points, the bad points. But yeah, it was, and the other big thing with acquisitions, everyone's like, perfect examples in North Carolina. Nationwide pissed off a lot of agents, and they're like, oh, I'm gonna get Travelers. I'm gonna move every piece of that Nationwide business. Problem is 90% of the Nationwide people, you can call and say, hey, I've got you a Traveler's quote. It's going to save you $300. Like, oh no, I've been with Nationwide for 25 years. My parents were with Nationwide. And I learned that one. That's another valuable lesson is just because you have an option doesn't mean the client wants to take it.
Mm-hmm.
And so be careful. Again, the importance of being able to maintain the carriers that you had. Don't think you're going to be able to roll it somewhere else, especially in the standard market. Non-standard market, not so much it's more about price and price only.
Right. Awesome. That was some good wisdom. I want to transition for the last two questions here to life advice and spiritual advice. I think it's good for, obviously the business advice is good for people who are interested for business stuff, but knowing who's behind the curtain making these business decisions is good. So if you had to prescribe or recommend something that everyone on planet Earth would do every single day, and it could be something from drink a glass of water right when you wake up to read a book, what would you prescribe to everybody that you think would make the world a better place?
Well, it won't be read a book because I don't. Once I got out of school, I don't know if I've ever read a book since college. So I don't know why I do not like to read. I'm too. I don't know if I'm ADHD or whatever you want to call it, but I honestly just think the one, especially walking in the door of here, is you can ask my receptionist if every day is a good day. That's all. Because the option of the other option, not so great. So you wake up, it's a great day. Make it a great day. And I'm not saying I'm sure my kids will run in here and tell you, oh, it's not always. No, it's not. It is. Right. It's stressful. I try to tell them, I said, you pay $40,000 a month in debt on that acquisition and tell me it's not stressful. I mean, the economy, staffing, it is stressful. But it's also an amazing business. And I have to portray that even if it isn't a great day for me, if I walk through there and say it's a great day, or good morning and good night and all that, I think it's just a huge difference in how I watch a lot of agencies that are run.
Nice. There's this guy that I really, really liked named Trevor Moad, and he did a bunch of mindset coaching for athletes. He worked with Navy SEALs and Alabama football and Russell Wilson when he was actually good and all these guys.
He's coming back a little bit.
Yeah, right. So he had all these statistics and studies and stuff on the power of negativity. I think he said something like a ne- a negative thought is like 4 or 5 times more powerful than a positive thought. And then when you actually vocalize that negativity, it multiplies again by 10. So if you say something out loud negative, that's going to be 70 times more powerful than you thinking something positive. And then that starts to weigh on other people. And I think that dives right into what you were saying, where like it might not be the best day, you might be going through stuff, but you have the choice of how you get to handle those things and what you're going to put out into the world. So then you can have other people lift you up if you're lifting them up, even though you don't have it within you to really, really lift them up, they might come in and help you out, right?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a stressful business, and what you just said, we actually had a staff meeting on this not too long ago. Is you would hear someone would hang up and they're like, "My God, she's a what da da da," and I can't believe that and what you again just said. So you take that negative call that only she heard, but now she broadcasts it to 15, 16 other people, and everyone's like, oh. So then the next one, like everyone's calling, and it's really not like that, because you turn around and we average about 425 calls a day in this office. Yeah, it's pretty high volume.
Yeah,
But I would tell you, we probably only have 1 or 2 a day, you know, that are really negative.
truly.
Again, I always try to tell people when I'm hiring, people don't call here because they're having a great day. They either owe a premium, they
Yep.
got a rate increase, they're having a renewal, they're adding a youthful driver, and they find out their insurance is. So, you know, it's not, they're not fun calls, but how we answer the call is huge. If you answer with a smile and a day and end with have a great day, it diffuses so much. We had someone, and I wish I could play the recording, but we had someone just beating the daylights out of one of our staff members the other day and cussing and all this, and she empathy remained really calm. And the guy's last comment was, "God bless you, have a great day." And I'm going,
Unbelievable.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the cussing and all this, and God bless you, have a great day. Thanks for your help.
Yeah.
But she was able to, again, empathy, and so it's interesting. But I do think the mindset of if you're an agent and you don't ask how they're doing, or yeah, uh, you have to open all that up. And again, we're family run. I've got 3 of my 4 kids are in it, and I'm sure the other one's 18. God knows, I'm sure I've left an office open down here, so I'm sure in a couple of years he'll be here. But
Nice.
and I've had a lot of offers to sell, and could I could be surfing with you and or
Not a
deep sea.
bad option.
Yeah, I know. But you know what? I brought all the kids to the house one day and said, "Look, this is a scenario. They'll guarantee us 3 to 5 years, whatever, and you'll have enough money. You can whatever go start your own agency, stay with them, do whatever." To they wanted to keep it, and my natural youngest always says we're going to be the largest family-owned agency in North Carolina. I'm like, all right. But I get to come to work every day with my kids. So
That's awesome.
how bad can it be?
That's amazing life you built. And you're the driver of the train, right? You're the guy who gets to decide that, and you you made a life choice versus a money choice, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and the money's not bad either.
No, I'm sure. Awesome, man. Well, I don't have any other questions for you. You did a freaking fantastic job. Just
Well, thanks
yeah,
for I just got like I said, we love using your services, and Nikki and all that have been fantastic. And like I said, we'll keep trying to figure out ways to grow, and hopefully you guys are part of that. So
sweet.
we'll keep sending people your way as well.
I appreciate that. We'll talk a little bit offline. I'm gonna hang this thing up, and then the recording will stop, but the video won't.
All right, man.
Hold on one second.